on Joshua 7. And the first verse is, "But the sons of Israel acted unfaithfully in regard to the things under the ban. For Achan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, the son of Zerah, from the tribe of Judah, took some of the things under the ban. Therefore the anger of Yahweh burned against the sons of Israel." Well, this chapter records the sins of Achan. Now, this sin of one man is attributed to the whole people. And I find that interesting. You know, it says the sons of Israel, or it depends on the translation, the children of Israel committed a trespass regarding the accursed things in some translations. Now, the people overall were probably not aware of this sin of Achan. They're probably ignorant of it. But the fact is, the people as a whole paid a price for his disobedience. And as a matter of fact, it cost 36 men their lives. Thank you. Let's look at the next two verses. Now, Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, and I had to look that up. I didn't know how to pronounce Ai. For years I would go over this. Ai. Yeah. Ai. It's a Yah. Okay? Which is near Beth-aven, east of Bethel, and said to them, "Go up and spy out the land." So the men went up and spied out Yah. And they returned to Joshua and said to him, "Do not let all the people go up. Only about 2,000 or 3,000 men need to go up to Yah. Do not make all the people toil up there, for they are few." Well, the spies returned, and they were confident in an easy victory over the men of Yah. They said the men of Yah were few. In truth, there were about 12,000. Israel thought that 2,000 or 3,000 men can handle them easily. But they're wrong, because there's sin within the people. And it's going to come back and it's going to haunt them. Verses 4 and 5. So about 3,000 men from the people went up there, and they fled from the men of Yah. And the men of Yah struck down about 36 of their men and pursued them from the gate as far as Shebarim, and struck them down on the descent. So the hearts of the people melted and became as water. See, this defeat at Yah is humiliation. They lost 36 men. They were chased for miles. The hearts of the people melted. They couldn't believe that this defeat actually happened. All they had to do at Jericho was walk around 7 times and blow their horns and scream, and woo! The walls fell in. People died. Then they went in and just killed the rest. It was easy. Well, things have changed. Then Joshua tore his clothes and fell to the earth on his face before the ark of Yahweh until the evening, both he and the elders of Israel, and they put dust on their heads. And Joshua said, "Alas, O Adonai Yahweh, why did you ever bring this people over the Jordan, only to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites to destroy us? If only we'd been willing to dwell beyond the Jordan." Well, Joshua thought that one of 3 things had happened. Possibly Elohim failed them. Or they wanted it too much, maybe. Or they didn't have enough courage. Maybe it was those things. It's wrong on all 3 counts. Their problem came because they did not properly analyze the situation. They can only be blessed if they're following the commandments of Elohim. That's the only way they can be blessed. And they went over that early on in Joshua 1, verses 7 and 8. "Only be strong and very courageous. Be careful to do according to all the Torah which Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, so that you may have success wherever you go. This book of the Torah shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written on it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you'll have success." Why do we come in twice a week, at least once a week, study his scripture, word for word, verse by verse. That's so we can know it. Okay? It's very important to know it. Everyone should be studying the Word on their own. And bring your thoughts and ideas in, and questions. But that's the only way they could be blessed, is following the commandments of Elohim. And then on down verses 16 through 18 of Joshua 1. And they answered Joshua, saying, all that you have commanded us we will do, and wherever you send us we will go. Just as we obeyed Moses in all things, so we will obey you. Only may Yahweh your Elohim be with you as he was with Moses. Anyone who rebels against your command and does not obey your words in all that you command him shall be put to death. Only be strong and courageous. What about you and I today? That still apply? Does our success depend on being obedient to the word of Elohim and keeping his commandments? There's a direct connection. In Luke 11, verses 27 and 28, came about while he said these things, one of the women in the crowd raised her voice and said to him, blessed is the womb that you bore and the breasts at which you nursed. But he said, on the contrary, blessed are those who hear the word of Elohim and observe it. See, you know what our problem today is? Probably more than anything, even among those of us who really try to keep his Torah, is recognizing when we're being blessed. It's not when you get that third big flat screen TV for your bathroom. That's nothing to do with it, okay? Because really, by standards of mankind, we are so greatly blessed. All of us that we're doing very well. I don't remember the last meal I missed. Okay, don't remember. And it shows. But, hey, I've been blessed, right? John 14, verse 21. He who has my commandments and keeps them, he it is who loves me, and he who loves me shall be loved by my Father, and I'll love him and will disclose myself to him. In Revelation 14, verse 12, here is the perseverance of the saints who keep the commandments of Elohim and their faithfulness in Yeshua. Revelation 22:14. Had to go to the New King James for this one. Blessed are those who do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life and may enter through the gates into the city. New American Standard says, blessed are those who wash their robes. And if you look at Isaiah, you come to find out in Isaiah 1, it tells you those two are the same things. Is to make yourself white. That's to be righteous. That means you're doing his commandments, doing his Torah. They'll have the right to the tree of life. That's eternal life. Matthew 4, verse 4, but he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that proceeds out of the mouth of Elohim. What do we live on? His word. Everything in his word. Every word. That's what we live on. That's what we're supposed to live on. That's where the blessing is. Verses 8 and 9. O Adonai, what can I say since Israel has turned their back before their enemies? For the Canaanites and all the inhabitants of the land will hear of it, and they'll surround us and cut off our name from the earth. What will you do for your great name? Joshua had one thing correct. He was concerned for the name of Yahweh. That should be our concern at all times. His name needs to be great. It needs to be set apart. It needs to be important. He wanted the name and power of Yahweh to be known. Verses 10 and 11. So Yahweh said to Joshua, rise up. Why is it that you've fallen on your face? Israel has sinned, and they have also transgressed my covenant, which I commanded them. And they've even taken some of the things under the ban, and have both stolen and deceived. Moreover, they've also put them among their own things. How have they transgressed the covenant? There is sin among the people. Sin, it's a strange thing. You'd think, well, Achan sinned, why does that affect everybody? Sin can have that effect. It can affect everybody. Okay, it can spread like a disease. And the repercussions could affect an untold number of people. There are sins like adultery that people think, well, that's private between two people. No, it's not. It affects family. It affects friends. It affects relatives. It destroys families. It destroys friendships. It's a horrible thing. And you destroy a family. If you destroy the family, you destroy that unit that Elohim built for his people in order to be civilized, in order to possibly flourish as a people. That's the only way, is through marriage and family. And that destroys it. Sin is very bad, and it could affect a lot of people. Verses 12 and 13 of Joshua 7. Therefore the sons of Israel cannot stand before their enemies. They turn their backs before their enemies, for they have become accursed. I will not be with you anymore unless you destroy the things under the ban from your midst. Rise up, consecrate the people, and say, consecrate yourselves for tomorrow, for thus says Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, or for thus Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, has said, there are things under the ban in your midst, O Israel. You cannot stand before your enemies until you have removed the things under the ban from your midst. Joshua was told to sanctify the people. Now, what does that mean? What did they do? How did he sanctify them? Yeah. It's for the people in the clothes to be clean. It really is. That's in Exodus 19, and it's 10 through 15, which said, consecrate yourselves because I'm going to approach the mountain, and and it said, no sex, and wash yourselves over a period of time, and wash your clothes. That's how they were consecrated. Verses 14 and 15. In the morning, then you shall come near by your tribes, and it shall be that the tribe which Yahweh takes by lot shall come near by families, and the family which Yahweh takes shall come near by households, and the household which Yahweh takes shall come near man by man. And it shall be that the one who is taken with the things under the ban shall be burned with fire, he and all that belongs to him, because he's transgressed the covenant of Yahweh, and because he has committed a disgraceful thing in Israel. You know, the man who's guilty is going to be picked out by Elohim himself. The guilty one is going to be burned with fire when he's discovered. Now, why burned with fire, do you think? And there's not a definitive answer to that I can tell you, but why do you think? Why burned with fire? Well, it's a bad way to die, yeah. Fire is a cleansing. That's how you utterly get rid of something. Okay? We're getting rid of that in our midst. That's how you do it. It's with fire. Joshua 7 again, verses 16 through 18. So Joshua arose early in the morning and brought Israel near by tribes, and the tribe of Judah was taken. And he brought the family of Judah near, and he took the family of the Zerahites, and he brought the family of the Zerahites near, man by man, and Zabdi was taken. And he brought his household near, man by man, and Achan, son of Carmi, son of Zabdi, son of Zerah, from the tribe of Judah, was taken. So the guilty one was said to be in the tribe of Judah. And then from there, it was found within Judah to be in the family of the Zaharites. And from that family, they got Achan. So they just drew lots. Okay, which tribe is it? Okay, Judah. Okay, all the families of Judah, from which family? And then they worked their way in. And he was found out. Verse 19, then Joshua said to Achan, my son, I implore you, give glory to Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, and give praise to him, and tell me now what you've done. Do not hide it from me. So Achan answered Joshua and said, truly I sinned against Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel. And this is what I did. When I saw among the spoil a beautiful mantle from Shinar, and 200 shekels of silver, and a gold bar of 50 shekels in weight, then I coveted them and took them. And behold, they're concealed in the earth inside my tent, with the silver underneath it. He said he saw, and he coveted, and he took. See, that covet thing, it's a bad thing. See, it's coveting that leads to these other sins. You know, it's that desire to take something that's not yours that leads to these other commandments. Stealing, adultery, killing. It leads to all those. It starts with coveting. Coveting is the one sin that is an emotion that's prohibited in Scripture. That's the one emotion that's not allowed, is coveting. Because of that, all it's going to lead to is breaking one of these other commandments. That's all it can lead to. It can't lead to anything good. And coveting means trying to take from someone else that which is theirs. Coveting, I want to get this straight. Coveting is not desiring. Okay? If I say, wish I had a job like Noy. Okay? I wish I did. See, that's not coveting. You know what? That's desiring something. You know what? I could work hard and become as successful as Noy if I really wanted to try. Couldn't I, Noy? So that's good. And so-and-so wants a wife as pretty as that guy's wife. Well, you know what? Start dressing up. Start putting on some smell good. Quit wearing T-shirts everywhere. Get a good job. Earn some good money. It can make you want to improve. That's desiring something. It's not coveting. No, it's not stealing someone's wife. It's not stealing Noah's job. Okay? That's the act that's bad. That's what coveting really means in the Hebrew. It doesn't mean just to desire something. Okay? It is to take something unlawfully from somebody else that's not yours. Well, he did that. He took it unlawfully. Saw, coveted, took. The sin was not from poverty either. Had nothing to do with poverty. It was from self-indulgence. He thought this sin was a secret. He thought it was buried deep into the ground. It was, but only literally, not figuratively, was it buried deep in the ground. Elohim saw it. Verses 22 and 23. So Joshua sent messengers, and they ran to the tent, and behold, it was concealed in his tent with a silver underneath it. And they took them from inside the tent and brought them to Joshua and to all the sons of Israel, and they poured them out before Yahweh. They found everything just like Achan had said. In verse 24, then Joshua and all Israel with him took Achan the son of Zerah, the silver, the mantle, the bar of gold, his sons, his daughters, his oxen, his donkeys, his sheep, his tent, and all that belonged to him. And they brought them up to the valley of Achor. And Joshua said, why have you troubled us? Yahweh will trouble you this day. And all Israel stoned them with stones, and they burned them with fire after they had stoned them with stones. And they raised over him a great heap of stones that stands to this day, and Yahweh turned from the fierceness of his anger. Therefore the name of that place has been called the Valley of Achor to this day. It wasn't, they didn't kill him by fire, killed him by stoning him. Then they burned the bodies up. They burned everything up. Achan's family apparently knew of this sin, helped him to cover it up. They all paid the same price. It's very sad. It's very sad. Very sad thing. Was that a little harsh? I wouldn't get it if I were you. Not good silver. Not good gold. Now, does that sound a little harsh in that punishment? All it did was take something that people who had it had been killed. Why should it just sit there and... He said not to. Yeah. He said not to. That's the answer. That is, that so disturbs me when I think about, being raised as a Christian for close to 40 years and then realizing that the one thing I was told not to do was obey the words of Elohim. Make sure you don't do that. Do anything else, but don't do that. Okay? Don't obey the words of Elohim. You need to have good feelings, but don't do the things he says to do, and don't not do the things he says not to do. That's Christianity. But, you know, this Achan thing, Elohim was pretty clear. And he's not some weepy old man with a beard. It's up on a cloud that wants everybody to be good. Please be good. I love you. No, that's not what he does. And you know what? There's probably not anyone in this room doesn't deserve that same fate that Achan did. That's humbling indeed. You know, we have to be preserved in his word and truth by him. That's the only answer. It's only by his grace and mercy that, you know, we don't meet that same fate as he did. And here's the thing. Don't presume and trample upon his grace and mercy. Okay? Don't presume and trample upon his grace and mercy. Don't ever, ever do something against his word thinking, well, he'll forgive me. It ain't going to work. In Joshua 8, verse 1 says, Now Yahweh said to Joshua, Do not fear or be dismayed. Yeah. Yeah. Emergencies come up. This is true. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a case-by-case thing. There's no blanket thing for everybody in all cases. This is why we have to keep studying it to determine what it is exactly. What exactly is sin? What exactly is righteousness? That's why we've got to stay on top of it. These things are fleeting. But if you truly have a love for his word, we're going to keep wanting to get into it, stay in it, so we can be obedient. You know, we all see, just to make it. I'm not going to say. Let me be clear. We've all heard that way too much over the last few years. We all in this room look at his word and say, "I'm not good enough." Okay, I'm not good enough. We will look at it that way. You know, we don't need to be looking and saying, "Oh, David's not good enough." That's the thing we don't need to be doing. Okay? Look in that mirror and say, Patrick's not good enough. That's what I've done. Don't be looking at others. Well, there it is. You know what David did? Did you hear what David did? Any of y'all? I'll tell you later. I don't want David to hear me talk about him. I mean, we got to look at this, and it is self-afflicting. Okay, it's supposed to be.
Well, I'll tell you what, we ended up having to call somebody out on Saturday, on the Sabbath, on our air conditioner.
There's emergencies. There is a.
Consider that an emergency?
I don't think Elohim would, but
We did.
I know I worked in my office for almost a week with no air conditioner, but it wasn't because I didn't call the guy that day. Okay, it was 94 in there. You know, we just sometimes, you know, when is the ox in the ditch? That's different for different people. You know, I wouldn't beat myself up over it at all. We're just doing the best we can, because then he can't come out on Sunday. And then you're going to wait till Monday. Well, he's already got 6 appointments for Monday morning, because everyone's air conditioner goes out in the end of June. The air conditioner, I've never had an air conditioner go out in January. Have you? I've never, not once. That heater can go out and I'm fine. January, if it's, gets down to 58 degrees in my house, I could put on a sweater. But nobody in the world wants me to get out my birthday suit and go out and get the paper. So, yeah. No, I see what you're saying. I wouldn't beat myself up over it. Let's look at chapter 8, verse 1 of Joshua. Now Yahweh said to Joshua, "Do not fear or be dismayed. Take all the people of war with you and arise, go up to Ayah. See, I've given into your hand the king of Ayah, his people, his city, and his land." The people were defeated by Ayah and at Ayah because of the sin of Achan. The people of Israel dealt with the sin among them, and they were desiring to see Elohim work once more. Verse 2, "And you shall do to Ayah and its king just as you did to Jericho and its king. You shall take only its spoil and its cattle as plunder for yourselves. Set an ambush for the city behind it." Now this time, Israel could keep the spoils. Listen, okay, do what he says. There's times when certain things are okay and when they're not. Well, how do we know? Well, he will tell us. He does tell us.
I think spoils will cover the gold and silver here, right?
Yes, it sure would. Achan, what if he'd just been a little patient? Instead of look, covet, took. Elohim is going to deliver Ayah just as he did Jericho, but the method's going to be different. Verses 3 and 4. "So Joshua rose with all the people of war to go up to Ayah. And Joshua chose 30,000 men, valiant warriors, and sent them out at night. And he commanded them, saying, 'See, you're going to ambush the city from behind it. Do not go very far from the city, but all of you be ready.' So he chose 30,000 men to fight against Ayah. He wanted them to lie in ambush." Verses 5 through 7. "Then I and all the people who are with me will approach the city, and it will come about, when they come out to meet us, as at the first, then we'll flee before them. And they will come out after us until we have drawn them away from the city. For they will say, they're fleeing before us as at the first. So we will flee before them. And you shall rise from your ambush and take possession of the city, for Yahweh your Elohim will deliver it into your hand." Well, Joshua was going to approach the city with a group of people. And, I'm looking at the numbers here. And the numbers, he's got 30,000, and Ayah's got 12,000. It should be an easy victory that way, but it sure wasn't the first time. It sure wasn't. I don't know how many people he took with him to go there first and then to flee with. My guess is it's the majority of that 30,000. Make him think that even with a bigger group, we're scared of you. And the ambush being a much smaller group of people. Verses 8 and 9, "Then it'll be when you have seized the city that you set the city on fire. You shall do it according to the word of Yahweh. See, I've commanded you." So Joshua sent them away, and they went to the place of ambush and remained between Bethel and Ayah on the west side of Ayah. But Joshua spent that night among the people. Their plan was to ambush the men of Ayah after leading them out of the city, then set fire to it behind them. Verses 10 through 12. "Now Joshua arose early in the morning and mustered the people, and he went up with the elders of Israel before the people of Ayah. Then all the people of war who were with him went up and drew near and arrived in front of the city and camped on the north side of Ayah. Now there was a valley between him and Ayah, and he took about 5,000 men and set them in ambush between Bethel and Ayah on the west side of the city. So there were 5,000 men set in place to prevent an attack from the men of Bethel. Okay. Verse 13, "So they stationed the people and all the army that was on the north side of the city and its rear guard on the west side of the city, and Joshua spent that night in the midst of the valley. And it came about when the king of Ayah saw it that the men of the city hurried and rose up early and went out to meet Israel in battle, he and all his people at the appointed place before the desert plain. But he did not know that there was an ambush against him behind the city. And Joshua and all Israel pretended to be beaten before them and fled by the way of the wilderness. So Joshua and his army, they approached Ai. The men of Ai, they went out to battle hurriedly. It was so easy the first time. The men of Israel acted like they were scared and they ran. They acted like they were already beaten again. Verse 16, and all the people who were in the city were called together to pursue them, and they pursued Joshua and were drawn away from the city. So not a man was left in Ai or Bethel who had not gone after Israel. And they left the city unguarded and pursued Israel. Then Yahweh said to Joshua, stretch out the javelin that's in your hand toward Ai, for I will give it into your hand. So Joshua stretched out the javelin that was in his hand toward the city. So the entire army of Ai went out to chase Israel. Elohim told Joshua to stretch out his spear toward that place. They're going to be delivered from their hands. Verse 19, and the men in the ambush rose quickly from their place, and when he had stretched out his hand, they ran and entered the city and captured it, and they quickly set the city on fire. When the men of Ai turned back and looked, behold, the smoke of the city ascended to the sky, and they had no place to flee this way or that, for the people who had been fleeing to the wilderness turned against the pursuers. The men who were hidden there to ambush, they entered the city and they took it. They set it on fire. And the men of Ai now, they see this. Our city's on fire. But they had no place to go because Israel had surrounded them. Verses 21 and 22, when Joshua and all Israel saw that the men in ambush had captured the city, and that the smoke of the city ascended, they turned back and slew the men of Ai. And the others came out from the city to encounter them, so that they were trapped in the midst of Israel, some on this side, some on that side, and they slew them until no one was left of those who survived or escaped. The men who burned the city then came out of the city and attacked the men from behind there. They killed them all, slaughtered them. But they took alive the king of Ai and brought him to Joshua. Now it came about when Israel had finished killing all the inhabitants of Ai in the field of the wilderness where they pursued them, and all of them were fallen by the edge of the sword until they were destroyed. Then all Israel returned to Ai and struck it with the edge of the sword. And all who fell that day, both men and women, were 12,000, all the people of Ai. So everyone died, men and women. There were 12,000 total. Did they kill the king? You'll see. Brought the king back. Verse 26, for Joshua did not withdraw his hand with which he stretched out the javelin until he had utterly destroyed all the inhabitants of Ai. Israel took only the cattle and the spoil of that city as plunder for themselves, according to the word of Yahweh which he commanded to Joshua. So Joshua burned Ai, made it a heap forever, a desolation until this day. You know, Joshua holds his hand up with his spear. What's that remind you of? Until all of Ai was defeated. What's that? Moses. Yeah, Moses did that same thing. Remember? He's going to hold his arms up in the air, and then he got tired, and then he had to get a guy on each side to hold his arm up for him. I can understand that. You know, a battle, if you're winning a battle, it usually takes longer than 10 minutes. Hand-to-hand combat, swords, spears, bows and arrows, more than 10 minutes, right? Takes hours, maybe days. Well, when Israel defeated Amalek in Exodus 17, verse 11, starting at verse 11, it came about when Moses held his hand up that Israel prevailed. When he let his hand down, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands were heavy. Then they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. And Aaron and Hur supported his hands, one on one side and one on the other. Thus his hands were steady until the sun set. So Joshua overwhelmed Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. Verse 29, and he hanged the king of Ai on a tree until evening. And at sunset Joshua gave command that they took his body down from the tree and threw it at the entrance of the city gate and raised over it a great heap of stones that stands to this day. Okay, he was hanged on a tree until evening. Why'd they take him down at evening? That's what the Torah says to do. In Deuteronomy 21, verses 22 and 23, and if a man has committed a sin worthy of death, and he's put to death, and you hang him on a tree, his corpse shall not hang all night on the tree. But you shall surely bury him on the same day, for he who is hanged is accursed of Elohim, so that you do not defile your land, which Yahweh your Elohim gives you as an inheritance. This act, you put the body up there in a tree, what's the rest of the people of Canaan going to see? They're going to see old King of the Yah up there. He was a bad dude at one time. Not anymore. It's going to strike terror in the hearts of these other kings. And the success of Israel is going to continue. Verse 30, so then Joshua built an altar to Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, in Mount Ebal, just as Moses, the servant of Yahweh, had commanded the sons of Israel. Excuse me. As it is written in the book of the Torah of Moses, an altar of uncut stones on which no man had wielded an iron tool. And they offered burnt offerings on it to Yahweh and sacrificed peace offerings. They wrote the Torah on the stones that were not cut by iron tools. Elohim commanded this previous for them to do that when they got into the land through Moses. In Deuteronomy 27, beginning of verse 5, moreover, you shall build there an altar to Yahweh your Elohim, an altar of stones. You shall not wield an iron tool on them. You shall build the altar of Yahweh your Elohim of uncut stones. You shall offer on it burnt offerings to Yahweh your Elohim. You shall sacrifice peace offerings and eat there. You shall rejoice before Yahweh your Elohim, and you shall write on the stones all the words of this Torah very distinctly. Verse 32, and he wrote there on the stones a copy of the Torah of Moses, which he had written in the presence of the sons of Israel. And all Israel with their elders and officers and their judges were standing on both sides of the ark before the Levitical priests who carried the ark of the covenant of Yahweh, the stranger as well as the native. Half of them stood in front of Mount Gerizim, half of them stood in front of Mount Ebal, just as Moses, the servant of Yahweh, had given command at first to bless the people of Israel. You know, this site that they just fought a war turned into a site of worship of the Father. Verses 34 and 35. Then after he read all the words of the Torah, the blessings and the curse, according to all that's written in the book of Torah, there was not a word of all that Moses had commanded which Joshua did not read before all the assembly of Israel, with the women and the little ones and the strangers who were living among them. All the words of Torah were read to all the people. Why? Remember. Learn it. Do it. Remember. You know, the ancient rabbis have said, if you want to know Adonai, learn his Torah. You want to know him, learn his Torah. That's what the people did. Any questions, any thoughts on Joshua 7 and 8?